welcome, precious gospel kindred. We are happy you to meet and make you freely welcome.
Greetings from the Enfield Shaker Museum. My name is Michael O'Connor, and today we're in the meeting room of Enfield's great stone dwelling to discuss the Enfield Chair. Today we'll investigate ladder-back chairs made by the Enfield Shakers, not the two types of Windsor-style chairs they also made, the low-back dining chair and the benches. Ladder-back chairs would have been a common form in rural New England. In fact, by the 1830s, they would be considered old-fashioned in the world outside Shaker villages. The fact that Enfield continues to make this style is an example of the Enfield Shakers' conservative views towards furniture making and style in general. The best reference for information about Shaker chairs is the excellent book entitled The Shaker Chair by Chuck Muller and Tim Raymond. First published in 1984, it's still the go-to book on the subject and is available in paperback today. It's arranged by community and gives not only an excellent overview of Shaker chairs in general, but specific details and features showing how each community's chairs were unique while still being recognizable within the overall genre of Shaker chairs. Enfield Shaker Village made chairs for community use. Exact numbers and dates of manufacture are unfortunately not known. It's likely, but not certain, that the chairs made for the habitation of the Great Stone Dwelling in 1841 pretty much marks the end of ladder-back chair production in Enfield, at least on a larger scale. There are a number of economic and social reasons to believe this, including that they'll soon reach their maximum population and will not need large numbers of new chairs, as well as the trend towards using non-Shaker-made chairs, which will increase over the years. Hervey Elkins, in his book 15 Years in the Senior Order of Shakers, published in 1853, shortly after he left the Shaker Village, describes the dwelling rooms in the stone house and notes, quote, "The dwelling rooms are strictly furnished according to the following rules: plain chairs, bottomed with rattan or rush, and light so as to be portable. One rocking chair is admissible in each room, but such a luxury is unencouraged." End quote. Let's look at some photographs which support some of Hervey's observations. This first photograph shows Great Stone Dwelling Room 1 with two chairs, both with cane seats. Note that the chair on the left has a higher seat than the chair on the right. Ministry House, Henry Blinn. The only Enfield chair visible in this photo amidst a lot of worldly seating is the corner of this chair right here. Does not have pride of place in the arrangement of this photograph. Henry Blinn in the Ministry House a few years later. This series by Kimball was shot in 1883. Now we have a better view of that chair. It's a rocker with a little bit of a slip cover or some kind of upholstery on the seat. This was probably used when he was working at this large desk. Sister side in the Ministry House. Another Shaker rocker with upholstery both on the back and on the seat for use sitting at this desk working. The music room. Here's a large Enfield armed rocker with a slip cover and padding on the back, and looks like it's heavily padded on the seat with a slip cover as well. Great Stone Dwelling Room 7. A pencil note at the bottom of this stereo view says Elder Abraham Perkins' room. 4 Shaker chairs are visible. A cane seat, this one can't be identified. A rush seat armchair rocker, and a second rocker with arms, but this has a pad on the seat. Maybe a hooked rug, maybe a tied rug. Some pad obliterates the seating material. Same room in the Great Stone Dwelling, Room 7. This room, the only Shaker chair is not an Enfield chair. It's a Mount Lebanon production chair with an upholstered back and seat and a large doily on the back. Some sisters in the Great Stone Dwelling kitchen. This sister can be seen to be sitting at an Enfield ladderback chair. It's not a rocker, it's a regular side chair. And this last photo is quite late. The family who donated it believe it was taken between 1905 and 1910. It shows room 7. Interesting that room 7 is the one that is often allowed for public photography. Elder Abraham Perkins leaves Enfield in 1894. He'll die at Canterbury in 1900. It's very likely that this room has been unoccupied for a decade by the time this photo is taken. But there are 4 Enfield chairs. 2 are clearly cane seats. These 2 are uncertain as to what they are. So there's some photos of Enfield chairs in use in Enfield buildings. Now let's take a minute to look at the wood these chairs are made out of. They're made out of yellow birch, which is the most common hardwood used in furniture making at the Enfield Shaker Village. The Latin name is Betula alleghaniensis, and its most distinguishing feature is its bark, which is smooth, shiny, bronze-colored, and exfoliates in thin horizontal strips. Native to this area and still seen in the woods today, it's a long-lived tree and grows to considerable size. Some pieces in our collection have tops with single boards as wide as 24 inches, and of course there are the long dining room tables that measure 21 feet 6 inches long. Clearly the Shakers had access to very large yellow birch trees. Let's begin by looking at some characteristics common to all Enfield ladderback chairs. We'll begin with the back post, starting with the pommel or finial. The finial is the most prominent and easily identifiable component of each community's chair. Enfield's finial is quite elongated, sometimes described as a candle flame finial. There's a single scribe mark at its middle, at the widest point, and is generally symmetrical above and below that scribe mark. As it approaches its narrowest diameter and swells back out to meet the top of the post, there's a subtle but definite shoulder located right at the transition. As we move down towards the back slats, the back slat mortise, that's the hole in the post that the back slat goes into, is defined on its upper and lower edges by a single scribe mark. That scribe mark will be present at each of the 3 slats on both sides of any Enfield side chair. Proceeding down the chair, we arrive at the lower chair with the seat rails and the stretchers below. A closer look at the joint between the seat rail and the back post shows a single scribe mark which delineates the lower edge of this rail mortise and the upper edge of the adjacent rail mortise, which comes in at 90 degrees. The single scribe mark will be present on each of the rails and stretchers on all 4 posts of the chair. The last thing I'd like to point out as we discuss seat rails is that on many Enfield chairs, the seat rails are secured to the posts with a single iron nail on each end. There's one here securing this rail, and there's one here securing that rail. It runs through the cheek of the post and into the rail to secure it in place, keep the chair from moving or the rail from twisting. At the base of each back post is a tilter. The tilter is a ball and socket joint, with the tilter being the ball and the socket being cut into the bottom of the post, allowing the tilter to stay flat on the floor even if the chair rotates backwards. The tilter is attached with a leather thong that goes through the tilter, through a hole cut into the chair leg, where that hole emerges here on the front edge of the back post. The leather thong is pulled tight, secured with a single iron nail, and then cut to this very typical sharply angled upward pointing V. This close-up view of the bottom of the tilter shows ball and socket joint movement, a little bit of the rim of the cup in the bottom of the post, and in the middle you see the leather thong. The leather thong is tied to secure it and it sits into a recess in the bottom of the tilter so that it sits flat on the chair and isn't abraded or worn away. Since we've completed the back posts, let's move up the chair to the back slats. Enfield back slats have 3 distinct curves for each of the slats. Sometimes I find that looking at the negative space between and above the slats accentuates those shapes. The lowest slat has the steepest curve. In essence, it's a segment of the smallest radius. The middle slat has a medium curve, and the upper slat has the shallowest curve. This gives an uplifting appearance and a sense of lightness to the chairs. Another characteristic of Enfield back slats is the profile of the top edge of the slat. The bottom edge is square, but the top edge is rounded on the forward-facing surface. The back is flat, it's only rounded towards the forward surface. One last feature of the Enfield back slat that I like to discuss is a detail where the slat enters the mortise in the post. The mortise is square, and the slat is square where it enters the post. There's a little bit of handwork done where the front edge molding is continued right to the end of the slat. When it's cut off and molded, it leaves a small triangle of wood in the mortise, which should be visible on Enfield back slats. Let's move on to the seat rails, the 4 rails to which the seat is attached. Cane seats and rush seats each have different style rails. Rails for a cane seat are drilled at regular intervals because the caning passes through the rail as it's woven to the chair. Cane seating is attractive, but that's subjective. One objective observation is that these are undeniably the lightest of the Enfield chairs. When Hervey Elkins talks about portability, the lightness of a cane-seated Enfield chair is truly astonishing. Rush-seated chairs do not need to have their rails drilled because the rush passes over and under the rail itself and is not through it. The rails do have a wing-shaped profile and it gradually tapers towards the inside, giving both a softer edge for the rush to pass over and presumably not having a hard edge for somebody sitting on it to feel. Cane is an imported substance. It grows in the tropics and would have to be purchased from outside the area by the Shakers, whereas rush is native and local, and it could have been harvested by the Shakers. Rush is a cattail or bulrush-like plant that would be harvested, dried, and made into rush for seating. Below the seat rails are the stretchers. This pattern is typical of Enfield chairs with 2 on the front and the sides and a single stretcher in the rear. The stretchers should have a gradual taper, being widest in the middle and tapering towards the ends where they're mortised into the posts. And they should be made of the same wood as the rest of the chair. Enfield chairs have a pronounced rake or backward slanting angle. You can see that the posts are not vertical. This creates a greater than 90-degree angle between the back and the seat for comfort. And the entire base of the chair is not square, but it's a large parallelogram. The features of the chairs discussed already apply to the rockers as well. So let's look at a couple features that are unique to the rockers, namely the arm on the armed rockers and the rocker itself. The arm of an Enfield rocker is graceful and attractive. It's joined to the back post with a square mortise and tenon that's pegged. It sweeps down before rising up to terminate in a rounded hand grip. Immediately behind that hand grip is a squared boss where the front post with an elongated vase turning is mortised and pegged into it. As is common with most Shaker rocking chairs, Enfield rocking chairs have a relatively narrow rocker that fits into a slot in the bottom of the post. Enfields are attached with a wooden peg to secure them together. Enfield rocking chairs all have some type of OG termination at both the fronts and the backs on the top surfaces. But there are two broad categories of rockers on Enfield rocking chairs. This is an example of what I call a flat rocker. The height of the rocker is generally consistent over its entire length. Compare that with the next chair, which I call a contoured rocker. It still has an OG at the front and rear top surfaces, but the area where the posts attach is significantly taller, and there's this broad sloping U-shaped curve between the front and the back posts. Now that we've had a chance to look at some typical features of Enfield chairs, let's look at the chairs gathered together. On the left, I have rocking chairs for you, and on the right, side chairs. The first row are all caned, the second row of side chairs are rushed. As I walk past this row of chairs, look how consistent everything is in these chairs. The rake, the seat widths, the seat heights, the finials, the dimensions of the stock. They are certainly of a type. There are 3 different heights here. The first chairs are 14.5 inches. There are 2 15.5-inch chairs there, and then 3 17-inch chairs. If you remember a photo of room number 1 in the historic photo section, it showed a chair with a high seat, which I think is the 17-inch height there, and a chair with a low seat, which is probably the 14-inch. One thing about all these chairs is that they have nailed rails. So the seat rails are nailed to the posts. Now I think the reason for this is that caning, because it goes into and out of the top surface of the rail, force on the center of the seat would cause those to rotate. In essence, if they weren't nailed, they'd all rotate horizontally, so the holes would be on this plane, not straight up and down. So the nails have a functional purpose in keeping the seat rails oriented on the cane. With the rush, as we said, the rush wraps around the top and the bottom, and the pull is straight in. There's not as much rotating force. It also serves to stabilize the chair. The rush chairs are universally looser than these cane chairs, so that nail serves a purpose of stabilizing the entire lower structure as well. Let's move around and take a look at the rush chairs. Again, they're of a type. As we look at them, similar seat depths. The rakes are similar. That last chair has its tilters missing, so it lays back a little. There are 2 heights here, again, a taller and a shorter. But in general, these chairs are made of stouter stock, and the finials are a little bit more bulbous, a little bit curvier on the sides. So they clearly relate to each other and differ in some significant ways from these cane chairs. Let's move over to the rockers. Again, the first 3 are caned. They certainly relate to the cane chairs across the aisle there. Relatively thin dimension stock, very attenuated pommels, and pretty consistent in their construction among each other. All 3 of these have the nailed rails because they are caned. They all have the flat rocker that I described. Moving down the line towards the rushed seats. These chairs have a little bit stoutier and beefier finials, a little bit thicker dimension posts, and they all have that more contoured rocker that gets thicker or taller at the area under the posts. None of them are nailed. Again, likely not necessary with the rush. The second seat's been taped. I would presume that it was originally rushed. The two armchairs have classic Enfield arms and the contoured rockers. One is caned and was originally made to be, the other is rushed. The one rocker whose seat we could identify in the photo was rushed. The 3-slat rocker has quite high arms. I find that interesting. Clearly, some of these chairs were made for special purposes or special circumstances. This chair is a good example. It's got a very low seat and a very tall back with 4 instead of 3 slats. Probably when it was made, it tipped over backwards. So someone resorted to adding a large piece of lead attached to the front rail. We can see it right here. It runs the length of the rail. It's underneath the seating, which in this case is splint. Stabilized the chair, allowed it to sit straight. But I'll tell you, you don't want to be carrying that up and down the stairs of the Great Stone Dwelling all day. The slats, even though there are 4 slats, they use the curves of a 3-slat chair. They don't reinvent a new set of curves, but they use what they had. The lower and the upper curves correspond to the ones on the 3-slat chairs. The 2 middle ones are the same. So if you would look at the context, it's A, B, B, C. So there are some armed and armless Enfield rocking chairs. Thank you for joining us today. I hope there was some interesting information about Enfield chairs. We stand to learn a lot. This is a relatively small sample. I think as our collection grows, as we learn more and see more, we'll start to be able to piece together over time more of the history of these chairs and put each of these individual styles into context. I'll leave you with a rocking chair function test, and thank you for joining us.